Today's forum featuring David Milenthal is part of the Columbus Metropolitan Club's Legacy Series, sponsored by the Taft law firm. Please thank our Leadership Legacy presenting sponsor and welcome Rocky Saxbe from the Taft firm to the stage.
Thanks, Richie. Taft Law Firm is privileged to sponsor the Leadership Legacy Series of the Columbus Metropolitan Club, and today we welcome one of Ohio's most visionary, successful and sought-after marketing. You're going to make this hard, David. So, marketing characters, who has helped shape the marketing world with his strategic thinking, and I think it's important to note how he has helped shape our local, state, and national governments as well through his involvement and leadership politically over the last 60 years. He's an Eastmore High School graduate, Ohio State University graduate. He's the founder of the Milenthal Group. He's one of Columbus's premier marketing gurus, political king and queen makers, policy wonks, community leaders, activists, and as I said, real characters. And perhaps most importantly, he's Bonnie's husband. And with David today is Angela Pace, who certainly is Central Ohio's most recognized and respected TV personality, leader, visionary in her own right, community activist, WTVN's Community Affairs. Channel 10. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm just watching cable these days.
Wow, Rocky. And how far
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
He's upstaging us. He's upstaging us.
And perhaps South High School's most famous bulldog cheerleaders, Angela Pace.
Why, thank you, Rocky. I think who thought this was going to be a good idea?
Wasn't Rocky.
I know, wasn't Rocky. The very first time that I heard the term marketing guru, it was in reference to David Milenthal. Now, granted, it was David who used the term to describe himself, but marketing guru, David Milenthal, the two terms are synonymous. So let me start with a little experiment here, and this was actually Bonnie's idea. How many people, by a show of hands, how many people in this room, and be honest, David can't hurt you anymore, how many people in this room have either worked with, worked for, or been a client of David Milenthal? Wow. Look at this. Marketing guru, I rest my case. There you go.
Sam, raise your hand.
And how many, and to how many people in this room does he owe money? Okay. All right.
Yeah, Leland for sure.
So, all right, so you saw the response there. What is it that makes David Milenthal a marketing guru?
That was a hard question.
I know.
Are you allowed to? Well, I don't know that I'm a marketing guru, but I would say that I was very fortunate to be raised in a family that was really interested, my mother and father particularly, and my brothers here too, where we really sat at the dinner table together and discussed events of the day. I'm really being honest about this, and or serious about it. And in that time, you learn a heck of a lot about a lot of things. My dad was extraordinarily bright, very progressive, and you know, we had this dinner table conversation, which I bet very few people have anymore in this generation. But he taught, I learned strategy, and I learned strategy really from understanding why things were like they were from a current event standpoint, and then working for Dick Celeste, really, with Dick Celeste in politics. Politics people have a lot of disdain for, I know, those who aren't in this system. But the reality is nothing teaches you strategy. Nothing teaches you rapid response. Nothing teaches you this kind of stuff more than politics does. And whether it be in the commercial arena or the political arena, I think to be immersed in difficult challenges and strategies is what teaches you to find those strategies and those challenges in the commercial world. And so I was very fortunate to have that kind of a mentor. Celeste was particularly bright, a Rhodes Scholar, and we see where political people are today. But certainly back then, he was really terrific, and all the people around him were really terrific.
All the Celestials.
Jan and Gail, and we all learned from each other, and that strategy was it. I have to answer shorter, don't I?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
I thought we talked about this. Yeah, okay, again, you ignore me. That's all right. As Rocky said, you're a local boy, and it's going to be a toss-up to see whether or not they rename Eastmore Academy David Milenthal High School or Archie Griffin High School. I can't wait to see who comes out on the winning end of that one. But what was your entree into the marketing world? First job?
Well, the first job I had was at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, a very small Blue Cross and Blue Shield company that grew over the last 40 years to become Anthem, one of the biggest Blue Cross companies. And the way I got the job is sort of interesting, and I said today I hope to give people some thoughts about what I thought worked for me and didn't work for me. Again, my dad and mom taught us to know a little about everything. So when you do interviews, when you go in to interview for a job, and I went in to interview for a job, first of all, I graduated from Ohio State, and really, I spent most of my years studying Bonnie in college. So Bonnie and I both graduated. See, back then you could only study. It was taboo to do anything else. Today, no one studies, they just jump into it. But back then, I came out with a rather weak IQ. And so I thought I would have a hard time getting a job. So I interviewed at Blue Shield along with 41 other people, 3 of whom were my graduate instructors at one course or another. I came in and talked about the issues around healthcare. Everybody else came in and talked about themselves. And that's what I really learned from my dad and from my experiences, is that I was able to talk about healthcare. I knew enough about what was going on at the time. It was way different than it is now. And that's how I got in. And I got in because, and this is the key, you have to, when you interview, you have to interview by talking about the guy you're interviewing and his issues, not your own issues, not about you. Because when they see that you're already, gee, on the education curve, he's even moved a couple inches. That's a couple inches more than anybody else has. That is really a very effective thing to do. And when we've interviewed other people, Rick and I and others, and Polly and others, I think we look for that person that just has that strategic sense about them and that knows what we're trying to accomplish.
Now, you mentioned that you graduated from Ohio State, so you were like a 5th or 6th year senior, and you went to I believe they called them freshman mixers back in the Eisenhower era, right?
You would know. Yeah, you would know firsthand. Yeah.
And that's where you began a personal journey at that freshman mixer.
What was that?
The freshman mixer.
Oh, yeah. It was Bonnie's freshman mixer, and I was a sophomore. And, of course, the sophomore guys always go over to see what the new freshman girls look like and were about. And I went, and I met Bonnie there, and she put her teeth right on my cuff. And I was walking around the room. I couldn't get rid of it. So we met the first day, and that's how Bonnie and I met. In fact, did we ever buy a brick at the old Ohio Union? We were at the Ohio Union, which is now bigger than we could ever get it.
Yeah, it was a little one-room schoolroom back then, right? Yeah, well, okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, I find it interesting that you would be the one to start talking about age.
We've known each other a long time, baby.
Very long.
So Bonnie became your life partner and your business partner, but there was another woman in your life who really helped to make David Milenthal who he is today?
Well, I think a lot of women helped make me. There's a couple over here in the room like Jan Allen, Marilyn Tomasi, I think. But Paula Spence, I'll give you a second piece of advice based on experience, good or bad. I really understood and continue to understand my failings and my strengths. I understand them better now than ever. And when I got into the business and bought Gene Hameroff's business, I had a very brash reputation. No. Yeah, not anymore, of course. Very brash reputation and very political reputation. And I knew that if we were going to do a commercial business, I had to have somebody who was opposite than me. I'm brash, someone who is stable. You know, I'm undisciplined, someone who's disciplined. I'm unfiltered, someone who's filtered. And I met Paula Spence, and who has become, for those of you who have been around long enough, one of the most prominent women. In fact, unfortunately, another woman who is very much like her, Kathy Levesque, is just passed away, and she was very similar in that regard. A very, not elitist, but a very polished woman who really helped to raise women in this community. I think that a lot of women out there would say that. And she became my partner and did exactly that. She filled the gaps and probably almost committed suicide doing it. But she did, and I think Rick would say too that she was a terrific mentor for him. I know how he feels about it. And so that's it. But there's been a lot of women. Bonnie also worked very hard with us. She was a media buyer. She knew nothing about it when we were just a little agency. She ran the U.S. Air Force Reserve account. And I've been very lucky. Strong women are really meaningful to me.
And it takes strong women then to deal with a David Milenthal.
Well, I need women who take on the responsibility and the authority that I cannot deliver.
Now, you've had some very successful campaigns. Give me your favorites.
Well, the two favorites, probably the most favorite, Bob Duncan mentioned when he was here. That was the desegregation campaign in 1979. Fortunately, we came up, this community is very special in that it is extremely homogeneous. If you have a desegregation problem in Boston, it's just bound to be divisive between the Irish and the African American, I mean, whatever. But in this community, it was highly homogeneous and was even more homogeneous when Duncan delivered what was probably his biggest and best decision on desegregation, so polished and so balanced. And we did a campaign called Think of Us Columbus, in which we got 5 local kids to actually, around the theme, that a guy named Joe Ashley, who worked for us as a copywriter and a songwriter, came up with the idea, think of us Columbus, give us kids a break. Carol is old enough to know it, but I don't know. And so that was my favorite. It's not so much as my favorite, it's the best, because of the impact it had. Made the front page of the New York Times as just a very different campaign than what desegregation was back then, which was a lot of this. And the people responded to it. It was a very positive experience when busing came here. And of course, a lot of water's gone under the bridge since. The second one is Ohio, the heart of it all. There are at least 5 people in this room who came up with Ohio. Marilyn, Bonnie, Steve Fector back there, who was a creative guy during that time. Maybe you weren't here yet. I don't remember Steve. And a variety. And Rick, I think, was only 12, so he didn't. But I believe Ohio, the heart of it all, is the theme for Ohio. I think if you took a poll today, it's still the thing they'd remember about. Yeah, of course, Marilyn. Marilyn made a bundle on that. So I really do think, and I think both the city and the state try very hard to be something they're not, the city particularly. And so I feel Ohio, heart of it all, was a great theme because it was truly descriptive about the diversity of Ohio. You have 3 Cs that are entirely different from each other. I mean, you might as well be in 3 different countries between Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Columbus in a very small state. So the diversity we had in Ohio, the heart of it all. And if you hear the governor speak, even today, this governor will use Ohio, the heart of it all the time when describing, sort of ending his speeches. I don't think he's going to bring it back as a theme, but it should be. And that was the second most.
Yeah, those of us who were around, I mean, I still have Ohio, the heart of it all in my head. Well, let's kind of segue then, because you mentioned it just a couple of seconds ago. So I have $32.57 in my purse, and I want you to brand and market the city of Columbus?
Well, I could do it for free.
Okay.
First of all, the city of Columbus has branded itself. And I think we're chasing other cities and trying to become copycats with what other cities are. And first of all, branding a place is very difficult. I've heard that people on the Columbus Partnership, a couple of them said it's very, very difficult. Well, brand isn't just the theme, it's the way you behave, it's the way the city shows itself. This city appears to be chasing tourism, which I don't see how it works at all. It's not a destination city. Certainly conventions are important. Now we're going to do a $200,000 research piece, which is the 15th of the exact same research piece that we've been doing over the last 14, 15, 20 years. If you travel around this country and this world, and anybody knows Columbus, or anybody comes to Columbus, people stay here because it's the best place to raise a family. That's really what this city's about. And I don't know many other cities that can claim that particular brand. This city has wonderful neighborhoods. It has spectacular school systems. And frankly, Columbus, once it bounces back, was always a great school system. You and I went there. And I was much more important, of course. And then but the reality is that it has, when people come here, they don't want to leave. There are big CEOs who have come and gone out of their jobs who won't leave. They just won't leave here. Come home to Columbus should have always been our theme. I thought so 40 years ago when I went to the chamber to present it. One of the few things I lost because they thought it was too boring. But Columbus, to be a place where people want to live and grow their families, gay or straight, black or white, is really a phenomenal thing to be. And instead we're chasing this and chasing that, and we want to bring in tourism, and we're going to, jet set around. It's ridiculous. And I just think you're trying to chase something. All these other cities would rather be us. That's the reality. They'd all rather be us. And so I do have very strong feelings about it. Can you tell?
I can tell. I can tell. And I'm really surprised that you were as controlled as you were just then.
Yeah, that was
all right, so we talked about branding the city of Columbus, and of course you are the
guru.
Author and the guru of Ohio, the heart of it all. How would you brand Ohio now?
That's it.
That's it?
No, there's no question about it. The governor must think so, or he wouldn't keep saying it everywhere. He might not think it's a brand, but in the reality, it is the brand. And Ohio, again, is a great people. If you go around and travel all over the world, I've never found someone who didn't have some connection back to Ohio. A best friend, an aunt, and it's, I never see, Nebraska doesn't have that. I'm not even sure Michigan or any of those other states have that. This is a place that people want to live. I know the climate. This is a place of diversity. This is a place, if you did social marketing for the state of Ohio, that's the best thing they could do, because everybody is interconnected in some fashion to Ohio. And you go, we were on a trip to France with 5 other couples, besides talking about Ohio State football, which is the only way people know Ohio State, such a sad state of affairs, in my opinion. They felt that they know, oh, my aunt was there. Oh, I remember when we were there. I really liked it. I was only there for a couple days. It's very interesting, again, what a homogeneous, diverse place, open place, both the city and the state are.
So you mentioned your alma mater, Ohio State. How would you rebrand Ohio State?
Well, we once branded Ohio State, and they turned it down. So I certainly would not have come up with "but for Ohio State." So, which I find for a university to actually use some awkward preposition to decide what the heck its brand is almost like saying, "Don't come here." I mean, it's just too. Am I we dead yet, Bonnie? John, your career, it's over. So I would say we together. I remember, and Jan really pushed this hard. Jan and I worked together then. We came up with do something big, and Joe, I can't say who it is, can I? Maybe.
Too late now. You've already
huh?
said it.
What? I meant that you were, no, she didn't turn it down. She drove the process. She believed in it, and we took it to the state. Big, everybody could, that's the biggest negative we have, which is the whole reason you turn it into a positive. Do something big, because that's what Ohio State's known as, a big place. I don't care where you go, it's just big and football. Big and football. And that's just, and so, but the big thing, you could have twisted. If you wanted to do something big in your life, this is the place where you do something big. And I got beat on that one.
Okay.
I got fired on that one.
All right, speaking of being fired on that, what about professional disappointments? What's your biggest professional disappointment? What would you do over again?
I was always looking to, on the other side of the fence, or what to say, on the other side of the grass.
Grass is greener on the other side.
And we created a merger at one point in time that my brother saved us on. But we tried to merge, and the biggest thing that was the biggest problem we had, was to try to mix mixed cultures instead of sticking with the culture that we were. And that's another point. You know, you think if you bring all these people together, it'll all work out, and then the reality is everybody's different. Nobody's wrong, by the way, except me for trying to do it. But the reality is that all these different cultures didn't mix, and they're all very successful now, really successful. I'd like to think including us, but they're all successful as well, and that was probably the biggest mistake, to try to mix those cultures together, and it sort of created an implosion. And I turned to my brother, who really then took on the agency and took us out of it and sold it, and I'm very proud of him and very happy what he did.
David Milenthal admitting he was wrong. It's a red letter day. Write it down.
Bonnie tells me I'm wrong every damn day.
Well, yeah, I know. And she's probably right. So, David, when you first started in marketing and advertising and the earth was still cooling, you had considerably fewer options.
I just can't believe that you would do this. It's based upon your own.
We have known each other so long.
You are so frail. You're so frail. And to bring this up.
But back in those days, you had considerably fewer tools to work with.
Yes.
Today, there's a myriad of tools that you can use. How do you get your arms around, how do you make all these marketing tools work in your world?
This is, my son John is driving a business that I'm trying to help on, probably over-helping as usual. And one of the things that we believe is that there are outputs and outcomes. And what we have now is hundreds of outputs. And when people concentrate on what they're, I hear people say, oh, we need to be on Facebook. Oh, we need to be on LinkedIn. Oh, look at that Instagram. Oh, look at this, look at that, look at this. The one thing you have to do is understand the goals you're trying to reach, and then find someone who can help you take the functions to fit the goal. Not take the functions because you think they're all so creative and cool, and then run off with them and try to figure out how they're used. So I think you have to set your objectives and your goals first, the strategy. What are you trying to achieve? And what's great about today's marketing world is that back 40 years ago, we had 3 TV stations. Angela was going through, that was your 25th year anniversary, 40 years ago. And she was, and we had 3 TV networks, no Fox.
But I still look good.
3 TV stations,
I was on them, yeah,
a newspaper that had about 4 times as much circulation as it has now. I mean, it's not a flaw, it's just the way it is. Huh? Oh, there were 2 maybe 3. The Journal might have been around too. I don't remember. Citizen Journal was around, but then there was the Journal and the Citizen at one time. So we had those, and then a bunch of local radio stations, which of course are also I believe are in trouble because of the Sirius and that. So now you have all of these, what did you ask me?
I asked you about all the new marketing tools.
So now you have all these new marketing tools. And in my view, what you could do back then, you could promote, you could advertise, you could inspire, but you couldn't sell. I mean, you took it to a certain point, and then you had to hand it off to either people or a system that could sell. Now, with these tools, you can take everything from beginning to end. Everything from beginning to end. My brother Rick has created a company that does that very thing. It takes it from the promotion side all the way through to to getting customers and sales side. He couldn't do that 20 years ago. So that's what you have the ability to do. I would say you could not name a challenge. I don't mean just a marketing challenge, a business challenge in which the new tools wouldn't be primary in helping you solve that challenge. Recruiting employees, recruiting certain kinds of employees, getting vendors lined up, getting vendors unified. Those things we didn't do in advertising and promotion. That kind of stuff is what you can do now, and it's very important.
So you do know that when you sit in that seat and you become the subject of CMC's Leadership Legacy Program, it means you're old. So, what is your leadership legacy for Columbus?
Well, I think if I was to leave it, first of all, I think it's the concentration on strategy. I just think, Steve Fector, great creative guy, is here. And even he, as good as he was and as cared about strategy as he did, as our advertising creative guy, the creatives always talked about creative, and very few of them ever brought it back to strategy. If you look on TV today, I see lots of ads, but I don't know how they tie to the strategy. I don't know how they tie. Now, they may be very creative, and they can win a lot of Clios, and the Super Bowl people can love them, but do they really connect back to what you're trying to achieve? So I would say, I think the strategy that came from the original political experience I had is what I would like to leave here.
Now, audience members, at this time, you might want to start formulating your questions for David, because the Q&A segment is coming up in just a couple of minutes. And again, we would like to remind you, no long, drawn-out diatribes, because we really don't care. We just want your questions, okay? So start thinking about the questions that you want to ask for David. So your son, Jonathan,
yes,
is following in your footsteps, and
yes,
he's taken over the business. What one piece of advice would Jonathan say is the most valuable piece that you've given him?
Well, he's in awe.
He's in awe of you? Is it?
The biggest piece of advice is to that I've tried. I believe he should network everywhere. And one of the reasons we got involved in not-for-profits, the reason why Polly, who really was a leader in that, was first she cared. She really had a heart that mine hasn't quite measured up to. But you meet everyone. You meet everyone. And early in your career, when you're driving your career, you need to know as many people as you possibly can, because you never know where the next opportunity is coming from. You really don't. And I'll tell one more story quickly and I'll be done. My dad, after I was at Blue Cross for a while, 2 years in, my dad, who wasn't in my business, there was called the Sunday Morning Bowling League at the Jewish Center. Those who are Jewish, we used to have a bowling alleys at the Jewish Center. So Sunday Morning Bowling League, my dad goes to bowl, and he meets some guy who just came into town to run the EPA. And the guy's bowling, and he's bowling, and he says, you know anything about, he told him he taught English or something. He said, do you know anything about PR? And he said, oh, my son's in PR. I interviewed for the EPA job, which was really a big deal, and I got the job. Who would have known that I'd have known it? So look where it came from, a bowling thing that my dad was doing at the Jewish Center. That's the thing, guys. You've got to be everywhere at once. And I know some people talk about balance, and I've been criticized for saying in those first 20 years, there ain't no balance, whether you like it or not. There just isn't. And if you want to drive a career, unfortunately, that's what you have to do. And the next generation, I don't think, understands that very well, by the way. I really don't.
Just one more question before we start. And the microphone is over here for those of you who have questions, so you can start lining up over there. But Bonnie says that you have a special little song, kind of like a victory anthem, that you sing.
I don't remember it.
Just because you're so awesome. And whenever you do something right and you are recognized for it, that you have this little song.
Well, first of all, I'm Papa to the now, because I have 3 grandchildren that, of course, are all like me. And, Bonnie. So, but I sing the song when I win. Shannon, my daughter's here. I play golf with her husband who will play golf with me, and I win a hole. Pop is the best, Pop is the best, Pop is the best of all the rest. That's about it. That's not the song? Huh? Oh, and I also poker. I use another song. I'm a winner. I'm the best in the world. So I can hear any more?
No.
By the way,
In fact, I'm sorry that I asked.
By the way, Eastmore would easily be named for me, not Archie Gray. I was in the Columbus School Hall of Fame, as are you.
As is Archie.
As is Archie, who I let in.
So if you have questions for David, please come to the microphone.
Hi, Andy Campbell. Thanks for being here, David and Angela.
Why are you asking me?
Well, I have to get things going, so I get to ask the first one. I know you've had a lot of involvement in political careers and campaigns. Could you tell us one of your favorite political stories from those experiences?
You know, I wish I could, but I always forget it. I black out certain things. I remember one thing we did. It's so long ago, but you remember our story, Bonnie? I can tell. I can't. We were doing a workers' campaign to keep workers' comp public, and we did and somebody in another state had said, when the private insurers come in to run workers' comp, it's like a Frankenstein monster. So we created a Frankenstein monster for our ad, and that's what won the campaign. There's other stories. Andy, I should have been prepared for that, but I'm not, because I've been out of politics for a little while.
Question about politics. Hey, Dave. Here's an easy one. Looking out at Ohio in the next, say, 10 years or so, and given the demographic shifts, you know, of Columbus rising and a lot of other cities in the state declining in relative terms, how do you see that affecting statewide elections, say, 10 years from now?
Well, I think it'll be first of all, you don't know how things may change back a little too, but I would say Columbus is obviously, not even 10 years from now, Columbus has now become potentially the dominant city in that regard. I don't know, Northeast Ohio overall, I guess, is still dominant. I think things will continue to move to Central Ohio, and look, Jim, one of the most interesting things is that any of the urban counties, not just the cities, and this I never thought would happen, the urban counties are all Democrat. The one thing when the cities were all Democrat. Now the county, Hamilton County voted for Barack Obama. Well, I never would have, 30 years ago, first of all, if you know anything about Hamilton County, it's the South. So first of all, to vote for Barack Obama, period, was already a surprise. But the fact is that the people have moved, frankly, into the rural counties. And that's what's really happening, Jim, is that the urban counties are becoming Democrat, and the rural stuff is all becoming not only Republican, but highly conservative Republican. And so I think that will continue. And I think that's one thing. I think young people are going to vote more than they used to, not necessarily this election. I think you're going to see that there is an importance to diverse voting in which Latins and blacks and young people, gays, I think are going to vote in bigger numbers than they did before. And we are going to see a divisive electorate, white men and everybody else, which is I don't know what's going to change it. I'm actually pretty worried about it, Jim. I think it's, Ted Strickland told me recently, he said, I think in the long run we're going to be great because we're going to have a much more diverse population nationally. And I said, how are we going to get to the long run? I mean, you know, that's what I'm worried about.
Hi, David. I'm Ken Thompson, and I'm an architect. And I think I've always admired ad agencies, creative firms, for just the whole idea that it's kind of be a little lighter environment in the office. Architects kind of take things too seriously because if we screw up, our buildings fall down. So, and Mad Men sort of, you know, framed that in a light that I didn't grow up in the 60s there, so not in a firm. So, did you have a booze cabinet in the office? You know, and what was it like?
Well, I'll tell you that my predecessor, that Gene Hameroff, who's now 90-some years old and lives in Arizona, he ran a retail firm here, which we bought. Gene actually did have to go out and drink with clients in the daytime, and it almost killed him. In fact, he got into a major accident. It wasn't his fault. He was almost killed because people were drinking in the daytime. It wasn't just advertising. It was people drank in the daytime. It's not happening anymore. I'm sure it has its own little quirks, advertising, but Mad Men is really something of the past. And I'd like to think it's something, having drinks for lunch in the business world is probably something of the past.
David, Jim Abrams, Rocky Saxbe's partner, and he wanted me to inquire as to whether or not you ever represented or considered representing a Republican.
Well, Rocky's a Democrat now. I don't even know why. His dad, I saw his dad grab his heart once when what Rocky was doing. Yes, and I still would. I'm a Democrat because I really believe more now than ever that we're seeing this, you know, and that the rich don't trickle down to the everyday people and the poor. It just doesn't happen. I mean, you can claim it, but it's not happening. And now we see pay equity. So I'm proud to be a Democrat in that regard. But I'm also in business. But I also think that there's some moderate Republicans like Rocky, or Joanne Davidson, or I could name a number who I would be very proud to work with. Not you, Rock, Joanne Davidson.
Hi there. What would be some advice you would have for creating a promotional strategy for, say, a trade industry, such as general contracting?
Oh, God. Am I getting paid?
He is going to send you an invoice, let me tell you.
Okay, so I will tell you what I think. First of all, I need to know from you, or anyone who works with you, needs to know from you what in metrics you're trying to achieve. You know what I mean by metrics? I mean, what are the specific what's the audience that you're trying to reach? What do you hope to move them over what period of time? What are you trying to get across? Not necessarily messaging, but what are you trying to do? And then you can design, in my view, a strategy that would actually reach those goals. So my advice to you, don't worry about the pieces. Worry about the strategy. What is the goal that you want to reach, or goals? What's your most difficult challenge, and what's the goals? And I really do believe inexpensively something can be created that reaches those goals.
Thank you, David and Angela. I'm Jane Scott with the Metropolitan Club. It's kind of become an unofficial tradition. I love to ask our leaders, the legacy leaders, tell us about some of the defining moments of your life. You know, those moments where the world just stops and you go, wow, this is really significant, or those moments that you look back and you maybe didn't realize at the time that put you on a different trajectory or a left turn even. What are those defining moments?
Well, the first, the negative defining moment was what I mentioned already, which that was a very defining moment when we tried to grow in this sort of merged acquisition way without at least me thinking about how the cultures would mix. That was a terrible thing. Not terrible because of the people, just terrible because it was the wrong decision. On the positive side, certainly being involved with Dick Celeste was extremely defining. He's brilliant, and I learned a tremendous amount from that campaign, not just from him, but from many people around him. You know other people around him, all of you, and you know how bright they are. And you know, Jan was just a big example of that. And I think that was defining when I learned how much I learned from that particular thing. The second thing was Ohio, the heart of it all. I guess I really learned a lot about myself, and I got pretty hard on myself. There was a point in time when I was so hard on myself, I was in bed for a while. I mean, you know, I just had I didn't have the resolve I should have had. And you learn a lot about yourself, and that's what I'm glad about, that I knew enough, I was honest enough about myself that I was able to do things that would still make me and make those people a success as a team.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you look in the dictionary under marketing guru, you will see way down in the little corner a picture of David Milenthal.
And you'll be back soon. Too bad these guys can't be a little more candid and maybe a little more humorous, but what a great twosome. Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's forum. We encourage you to continue the conversation if you can catch them out in the lobby with coffee and cookies. Once more, thanks to our friends at the Taft Law Firm. And please let's, again, thank our speakers, David Milenthal, Angela Pace, and, by the way, Bonnie.